So I'm going to make a supply run into town today. And it's interesting how, because of the design of the space, a lot of things that could be easy are difficult. Now, part of it is just that I'm here alone, and everything is going to be difficult no matter what I do. So even if everything was designed perfect, some things would probably still be difficult. Although, if we can fix things with design, correct design, then we need to do that. And in this case, I have a guy come with a pickup truck, right? Because my vehicle is busted. And I'm about 800 meters from the gate he needs to come through. So I got to walk over there, unlock the gate, and then come back. So that's 1,600 meters, 1.5 kilometers, which is actually quite a considerable walk to just open up a gate. And later on, I'll have to shut that gate. And so the just bigness of the space is such that things are difficult. Now, I could instead not lock that gate and lock a different gate that's closer. That's an option. But I don't really like to have the other one unlocked. You know, I have to keep wood poachers out. Somebody could leave the gate open and then cows can get in. Although, in that particular part of the land, it really wouldn't matter. I don't have anything they can eat. In the past, cows have gotten in because barbed wire fences rot. And they've eaten my whole garden before I even know that they're there. Well, they eat like 80% of it. Like one year, I lost all my corn because a whole group of cows came in. And the thing about a fence like that, I mean, it's colossal, the number of puzzling problems you have to figure out how to put it all together. And I make this video to help people understand some of the odd difficulties you might not expect of doing a strange homesteading kind of project like this. You know, a lot of people just think, oh, well, it's all nice, nature's all fine and everything. Well, you want a barbed wire fence to keep cows from eating all your corn, right? Well, wooden fence posts rot, and so you have to replace those. And I have about 3 kilometers of fencing. And so even if those only have to be replaced every 5 years, that's a whole bunch of extra work that you don't really want to do. Now, of course, wooden posts are dumb, so you should get concrete ones. Well, that's a good idea. But it's going to cost you a lot more to have a bunch of concrete posts. And eventually, I'd like to actually replace those with a real wall that doesn't just keep cows out, but people out. How much is that going to cost for a concrete or brick wall that's 3 kilometers long? You know, things that sound simple are just unbelievably difficult. So all I want to do in this case is just open a gate. And I got a whole bunch of shit to do before this guy gets here. And so I'm going to walk way over there and just unlock the gate. That's all I get done. Now, this can be solved with, and I mentioned this in some other video, by building a gatehouse there. And having a gatehouse at the other gate. There's 2 gates that are important. And then just be able to send a message to somebody, or they would know the person's coming and that they're a trusted person, and they would, you know, be a person who likes to staff the gate. And, you know, maybe they're a writer, so they don't mind being in one place all the time. Maybe it's a couple. Maybe it's 2 couples to make sure that they have a lot of freedom, but that gate has someone there. That means if there's 2 gates, that's 8 people just to have their gates staffed. Now, of course, those 8 people would have other functions as well. And of course, they need communications. And so those 2 gatehouses, which can handle 4 people, which means you have a bigger house because they're going to need some space. Maybe you want to have space so they could have kids there. Who knows? Or maybe you can't have kids if you fill that role. And of course, at both gates, I do intend to build up a little neighborhood there. But, Now we're just talking about Fantasyland future shit, which is exactly what we should figure out anyway. You have to see the future, which most people suck at. So, the way I did things here, one of the mistakes I made, and one of the goals of this channel is actually to be really honest about any mistakes I've made. In fact, I need to make a whole video just about every mistake I've ever made. It'll be a long list. Even if I do 90% of stuff correct, and I'm not quite sure my number's that high, at least not on the first try. Sometimes it takes 3 tries to build something no one's ever built before, to have it work out. Sometimes it works out fine right away. Get my zippers down. It's annoying. Not that there's anyone here to offend. And it's not that offensive anyway, give me a break. But like one of the mistakes I made was I put everything far away from each other. And that's because of my own attitude. My own limited view is, if I was going to stay in a forest, I want to be far away from other people. Well, there are other people like me that feel that way. But in general, that's not what most people want. They want to be close to other people, maybe not crammed up right next to them, but you know, one composting toilet then can serve more people. You can have less infrastructure if it's shared and have more accessibility to other people. Because I've had people come here and they're like, holy mackerel. They don't actually say that. I just say stuff like that because it's fun. But they say, wow, everything is just far apart. I haven't walked this much in forever. Because they're from a city, and some people in cities, even if they're going to go, 10 blocks, they'll take a little bus or a taxi or Uber or whatever. People are not used to walking around. And here, the assumption is you should be walking around. But then I'm designing against human nature as it currently exists. Which isn't a terrible idea, but it really is a fundamental flaw when people create community spaces, is designing for something for people you imagine should exist the way we should be versus the way we actually are. Now, neither of those strategies is necessarily wrong, but they both have inherent flaws. Like designing as if everyone was going to be good and stuff is like a colossally delusional, utopian, dumbfuck way of thinking. Design, assuming people are selfish, spoiled, energy efficient in the sense that they will just do things the easiest way, and then still try and select people who are really awesome, try and avoid the problem, but you're going to have a really hard time doing it. It's just going to be super rough. That could make a whole video too. Designing for what you want people to be like and designing for how people really are. Architects get into this all the time, where they'll build buildings that don't work out the way they thought because they imagined that we could create something, to promote a particular social value that in practice people don't necessarily want. Maybe those interior porches on your courtyard will be filled with happy people like in the architectural diagrams. You fill in those little figures having a nice chat out on the porch. Or maybe they won't feel comfortable. It depends on who's living in the building. And those will be abandoned spaces. And so that's something that's really tricky. I mean, you think about something like The Suburbs, right? Designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, I believe. I don't know. I just read shit. I don't know if it's true. And they're horrible. And part of that's zoning. The fact that they're built for the car. These were designed in the 50s, I think. That they're built assuming that everyone has a car. And that we don't want to live in places where there's businesses, because that's for low-class people. Or something. I don't know what he was thinking. But, designing it so that there's no businesses. And zoning laws, of course, are just horrible the way they are. you could at least have quiet businesses near homes. I can understand like not wanting noisy factories or polluting things next to your home, but small business mixed in with residential is absolutely brilliant, depending on how you do it. All right, why am I hyped up? I'm hyped up because I'm going to town. And I got a long list of shit to do. I have no money to do it with. And so I'm really hoping the cash machine has money, because I live in a very rural location. And so it's entirely possible I could be paying this guy to go to town and then find out there is no money in the cash machine. And then everything just stops. Hope that doesn't happen. Let's assume that won't happen. It has happened. Not that I paid a person. I walked in. But anyway, so these are the kind of design things that affect me a lot. And I have a book called How Buildings Learn, which is really great because it was like how a building was built and then how it evolved over time. Super educational, and it uses a bunch of example buildings. Like there's an MIT wooden building where it's really saving grace, even though it's built for temporary use, and it's probably a fire trap too, is my guess. But is it you can just knock out walls and it's all wood, right? You knock shit out, build stuff. It's like a crap ass building, which is fantastic. In fact, I lived in an old house in the city. It was built in 1901, fairly economically. Knob and tube wiring, no insulation at all. I got it really cheap because it was a building that anyone would look at it and say, this is a dumb building. It had a brick foundation, which is an earthquake risk. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it because I kind of had figured that that building was going to get torn down someday. In fact, I did end up selling it to a developer who tore it down. Is that a shame? Sure, whatever. But nothing lives forever, especially if it doesn't have value. My ex-girlfriend's father ran an insurance company, and he said it was like a white elephant, which I don't think means the same as like white elephant gift parties, but essentially it wasn't worth fixing it up. And in a way, that was wonderfully freeing because I didn't really have to give a shit if, walls get dinged, if stuff is broken. At one point I was like, geez, this person was trying to get me to buy double pane windows for the house to lower my energy costs, because my energy cost for keeping it anything warm at all was very high. And that would have been a total waste of an investment. So I didn't do it, luckily. The only thing I did with that was, since the house smelled like death when I moved in, it was just horrible, is I ripped out all the carpet, meaning I paid people to do it, and had them put in industrial office type carpeting. And it was perfectly fine. It wasn't like comfy shag carpeting or something. It was just straight commercial carpeting. It was actually bought from a place that sells extra carpeting left over from really big jobs that they do. God, I got my keys, right? Yeah, I do. Okay. Hate to walk out here with no fucking reason to do it. And I also used TSP to scrape the mildew off the walls, since there's a huge amount of like black mold on the walls and stuff, and it was just a messy house. And what's my point with that? Oh, things can be designed wrong. I don't know what my point was. Here, my hope is, with all the projects I do, and you're involved in this, if you're watching this, is I'm designing things that have never been built before. Solar sauna, solar chicken brooder, stuff like that. Some of those are easy, some of them are hard. But I've got a dozen ideas for really cool projects, and what I need is engineers to check that work. When I drop some shitty drawing, I want somebody to check the work and say, well, you know, this is going to work this way, or maybe, like, I mean, I need advice on, like, well, if I make a solar dehydrator, where should I put the temperature and humidity monitors? Now, I already know that, but you know, how can I have them hooked together? How could I wire a vent that once the humidity in a dehumidifier gets high enough, it opens the vent and lets the air out and lets new air in? Is that worth it? Or just let it all go through? Which would cool the whole system down faster, and it wouldn't give the air time enough to really load up on humidity. And I might need things like temperature loggers, and there's these little USB temperature loggers you can buy, and other kinds of data things to make sure this design is working at an optimal level. Not to everybody who builds one later, the people who copy me, since the idea behind these designs is I give them away to the world, right? That's the benefit, and that's how I can crowdfund it, is say, look, this has never existed, this is a totally useful thing. It might be useful in impoverished areas, or just areas that don't want to waste a lot of energy, or they want simpler systems. And they may not need to measure it at the level I do. But if I'm going to actually do engineering stuff, which I'm not qualified to do, then I need advisors as engineers. And I need to make sure that thing works really, really, really well. And then other people can copy it, but they don't have to measure it all. Like, the design can be good. It would be cool if some of them did, especially if they were going to design it for a very different climate. Because I'm designing for a very moderate climate here. But if somebody is going to build in a much colder or much hotter climate, that might affect the system quite a bit. Something like a solar dehydrator, which is affected by how much, you know, humidity the air can hold based on temperature. And so, you know, there's like hot tropical climates, way hotter than here, way wetter, where it might be more difficult to run a solar dehydrator. On the other hand, if you could do it right, it might even have more value there, because things tend to rot faster there. And so if you were able to take your produce, you know, all your tropical fruits and stuff you can grow, and you're able to dehydrate it and then stick it into jars where it stays dehydrated, you could preserve food in areas that were very difficult to do it in. That'd be pretty cool. So the point is, I can't do all this alone. I don't know what I'm doing. This is true of my architecture as well, where for that, I mean, I've got so many different architectural ideas. I would love to get an architect on site and tell them, yeah, here's what I envision. And let's put it in a CAD. And then let's, you know, talk to a structural engineer and fix it up so that it can handle an earthquake worse than will happen in the next 1,000 years. You know, plan for shit that's going to happen, because people don't do very good at that. They build stuff thinking, oh, it'll be okay. And it's like, no, it's not going to be okay. You know, whenever anybody refers to, like, oh, well, there was this flood and a bunch of people's houses got destroyed, but, you know, it was like this unpredictable 100-year rainstorm. You know, how can we plan for that? And it's like, that's only 100 years. I mean, that is not very long. Do you really want to lose your whole fucking town because you didn't plan ahead for something we know is going to happen? Like, there were some towns in Germany a couple years ago, and I feel for these people. I'm not being a dick, you know. Sorry, an asshole. I don't like to insult particular genitalia. Everybody's got an asshole. A lot of people talk out of it. How can I really take myself seriously when I'm such a dumb fuck, really? I gotta speak nicer to people, okay? The world is not completely full of dumb fucks. It's just the ones that I've had a lot of exposure to. And even a lot of the people I've had exposure to have been lovely, lovely, lovely. A woman just sent me a donation. She came here like 12 years ago. Lovely person, Australian. And she was with a nice group of people as well. And she just sent me a sizable donation that makes it so that I'm not completely desperate right now. Like with this supply thing to town, I'm going to be able to get money. I just emailed a lady who cleans up my house, and she hasn't cleaned it up for well over a year. It is disgusting. And and she's a really hard worker. And this kind of money will allow me to have her come in for probably 2 days and clean up my house and another house, because I'm working on inviting some other people to come visit me. And so small donations help a huge amount. Her donation was $300. For me, that is a colossally huge amount of money. Like, that's more than I get on the Patreon account in a month. So I don't know her economic situation, and I certainly don't want anybody to ever donate to me if it's any hardship to them. But if people are looking for a project where, you know, I consider myself a very honest person. I live very frugally, like way too frugally, like to an unhealthy level. And it's just difficulty all around. And so I really appreciate when people do that. It just, they don't even know probably how much they're helping me. But how much better is that than donating some project and some nonprofit that, you know, that the people all pay themselves these huge salaries and they're all driving nice cars, and really the nonprofit is just a way for them to scam people. And you can read about many cases of that. So the people who do donate to me, whether it's $5 or whatever, I appreciate it so very much. And I'm going to be publishing more about what I'm doing with that money. I am about to get a drone map of this whole place, and that's going to cost a whole bunch. I told my friend, he lives locally, I told him, do not give me the friend's rate. Is that irresponsible to say? He said, well, you know, you can take that back if you want. And I'm like, no. He lives locally. He is a very hardworking guy. He has sheep and a family. And I know he's not totally poor, but this is real work that he's doing. It's professional work that nobody else in the area can do, and I trust him. And so I want to pay him the market rate for his work. I don't want to get the friend's rate. And this is a very common problem. Sorry, I'm all over the place. I'm scattered as fuck. But what do we got? 8:12 a.m. That's one of the reasons I haven't had as many friends down, I think, is because I know that my friends from the city that I've known for so long, many of them will want to come down and not pay anything, because why should they have to pay a friend to visit them? Well, it's because it's a cool-ass project, and I have no income. And, you know, when I was rich, I used to host events all the time, and I never charged for any of them. Oh, I charged for one time. I charged for a year 2000 Y2K party. And the reason I charged for that was because I bought a bunch of champagne, and me and my girlfriend made these bags of little toys and gifts for each person. And I just didn't feel like paying for all of it. I could have. But I was trying to also work on how to have more balanced relationships with people, where people don't just use me. And I'm still struggling with that. It's probably my biggest problem in my life. And I played around recently with the idea of just setting a price on it. And I might peg that price to something else so that people really understand, oh, he's not just making up a price. It's pegged to something I respect, like, you know, the cost of a hotel or something, or the cost of an event. I could actually peg it one way for residents, one way for other people. Because I look at prices of things. I've been out in the woods for 21 years, right? So I've lost my sense of reality entirely. I look at prices people pay for stuff, and I'm blown away. What they'll pay for a 3-day workshop And also a 3-day workshop is a stupid idea anyway. Because, well, I understand why they do it. But, because, you know, it takes time to arrive. It takes time to leave. You have very little actually active, relevant time on site to actually learn. Of course, people don't go to workshops to learn, do they? No, they go to workshops to meet other people, you know, and feel like they had an experience that was of some depth. I don't think you can have a deep experience in 3 days. I'm sure you probably could. Sorry, I say a lot of shit I don't agree with right away, but, you know, I want people for week-long or month-long workshops, and I realize that that does cut down on my market, because most people don't have a month off. But those that do, my cost of hosting them is less per day than it would be if they came for a week or for 3 days. You understand how that works, right? Because there's this installation of them. There's, you know, you wash sheets maybe if you're giving them a bed, which most people want a bed. You know, most people are not in the demographic where they want to travel with a sleeping bag or something. Or even if I had sleeping bags for them, should I then wash those every time? I don't know. Oh, fuck. My whole body's sore. I am hopefully getting better. I'm not sure if I am. One of my to-do items today is to take a look at my chest and see if there's any evidence that I'm infected. Because this injury has been going on a while. And in the daytime, I think it's getting better. And then at night, I don't think it's getting better. And at some point, you know, you can let things go long enough medically that you can then be in a state where you could die from it, you know, or it would cost much more to fix it when it would have been cheaper earlier. Of course, what I need to do is just lay down for like some days and have somebody bring me food. But every fucking day I have to do shit. And some of that shit is heavy. So it's just the puzzle that I'm in. And it can all be fixed with design and the right people. Both of those are tricks. The harder part is the people part. I'm talking with various people who might want to come live here. So far, I'm not talking to anyone who wants to pay anything. The best I've gotten is that they'll pay for their own food. They did mention what they pay for rent right now, which is a bunch. And they could both live really well here and be contributing for that amount, just for their rent, not even including all the other things in their life. You know, not including internet and utilities and eating food and going out and doing something. So, even though it pains me to charge people, because so many people, like 80% of people, if you charge them anything at all, that they have a negative reaction to it. And that's because for some weird reason, they think that if you're living out in the forest, everything has to be free. And it's like, no, there isn't shit free for me. You know, I mentioned the fence thing, just the fencing one. And I also want to put up other fencing for having animals and stuff like that. My rabbit area has too short of fencing, and so I used to lose rabbits sometimes to predators. My chicken coop is completely overgrown. I had wooden gates on those, and those are rotted, and therefore you shouldn't build wooden gates. So that's another thing for my big list of all the things I've done wrong. But the biggest thing I've done wrong is let people come for free in exchange for labor. Because their evaluation of their labor is really high, and mine is like, no, having you here is a cost to me. You're not a benefit, you're a cost. And so even if people are going to do work trade, I believe they should be paying for it. And what's more accurate is I shouldn't even expect them to do real work. Because most people, to be honest, can't do any real work. Is that really true? I'm talking physical work, the kind that they think I need, which is gardening. That's what they think I need. And it's like, no, I can hire someone for gardening pretty easily, you know, and they'll do a way better job. They'll do a 5 times better job than you're going to do. And so some people, when they come, they actually have tech skills, for example, that I could use, you know, or like I mentioned, architecture and things like that. I'm like, well, I don't want to do the thing that I always do that I'm an expert at. That's not interesting to me. I want to do something different, which is fine. I can also arrange that. But understand, now you're doing something that you're not good at, that I have to train you in, and that you're not going to end up wanting to do very long. And so in some cases, I wish that people would apply and say, I want to do the thing I'm really good at that you can't do because I'm so fucking great at it. And it's going to increase the value of your project and make it succeed. You know, like grant writing. I don't know if that's a magic solution, but if somebody was on grant writing all the time, and if I'm focused on using my past photos and videos, and I can make new videos, and I can set aside spaces for it, and I can collect and publish designs for it that inspire people. In other words, I can say, look, if you fund this project, your foundation is going to look really cool. You're going to be helping local people. We're going to build it here, you know, and then we're going to copy it in the local communities. We're going to spread this idea. We're going to make it open source and give it to the world. In other words, this is the biggest bang for your buck. If I can say that to people who give grants, I think that they might like that. And if I'm working with other people, which I have people locally I work with, I just don't have any money to pay them. So it's a convoluted mess is what it is. But I'm breaking through it. And again, the donations are invaluable. Because right now I'm just trying to survive, you know, week to week. And at the same time, I'm working on systems that will support doing what I actually want to do. So we'll see if I can succeed. I have no idea if I'm going to make it or not, to be honest. I wish I could say, yeah, I've got it all figured out. It'll all be fine. And it's like, no, I don't. I know that I'm hardcore. Apparently, I just won't die. Not yet. And I'm working on being way pickier about who I have here to make sure that they're net profitable for the project. Even then, if the first people I get in, if they're problem people, and how can you tell the difference, really? You know, like when you hire someone for your company or you have a housemate or even you get into a relationship, well, shit can hit the fan, can't it? And it often does because a lot of people want it to. Well, we'll see. Just have to see. I'm tired. I'm beaten up, but I'm the only person I know who's trying to do anything like this way. Maybe that means I'm insane. But great new ideas come from insane people. Doing things that other people say that's impossible and you're doing it wrong and you're stupid. Definitely not stupid. Might be crazy, but not stupid. See you later.